for any discussion items. So if you do have a name and topic, let's drop it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll get going in about 1 minute. Okay, I feel like we are a little bit lighter, so it might be a bit of a shorter water cooler today. From still got a couple more people coming in. So we've got a name topic from John, who's going to give an update on the NAP dashboard. Name topic from Doug to give a testnet pulse check. Name and topic from Define as well. I think there's a couple. I think Steph's gonna do a quick update. Keep me honest here, Steph. Tell me if that's right. And then Ben will also be doing a quick name and topic as well, both roadmap related. So that's exciting. Alrighty. Well, let's kick off straight away. There's no major announcements. There's no major announcements today. So the first thing that we usually discuss is the suggestions pipeline. I'm going to give this a quick share here. As I said, we are going through a little update on this over the next week. But the suggestions that have come in, we've had one from Ben, who's going to be talking about on-chain treasury allocation and facilitating a workshop later this week. He's going to give a quick update on that over the coming days. Then we also have one from Steph and Adam, who's going to be giving a quick update on the narrative and the website feedback session, which is becoming the narrative building workshop. So Steph's going to talk a bit more about that. And then there was also a suggestion from Peter that was exploring Comfy Stream. We had a facilitated session last week. That was between myself, Peter, John, and Rick, who I'm not sure Rick is in the call. And that was a successful session, and I think there'll be a follow-on perhaps this week. But Peter, maybe if you want to give a quick update in the name and topic, that would be awesome. So that's on the suggestions front. Medad, do you want to give a quick update on the current roadmap items?
Yep, thank you very much. Projects are moving forward strongly. I'm just going to drop the links to the milestone pages and the uh, next due dates on each milestone. So Cloud and NAP are both going strong, and we also have Live PRV2, which is being worked on. You can check all of the milestones here, and we're going to have more updates towards the end of the month where teams put in their retros and monthly updates. Thank you. Rich, if you're talking, you're mute.
Sorry, I lost internet for a minute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, take it away, Medad.
I just did. So, yeah, for anyone that missed it, I just shared the the milestone pages. You can check out the newest updates on the milestones and the teams that are working. And most updates will come towards the end of the month, which teams put in their monthly update and their retros. Yeah, thank you very
Awesome.
much.
Thanks a lot, Medad. Great. So that's it from the roadmap section. As I said, there will be some work on it over the coming week. What we're really trying to do with the roadmap is visualize everything that is all the work that is taking place across the project, and also provide a space for new suggestions, new problems to be scoped, and new solutions to be formed, and then uploaded to the roadmap. So More on that next week. But let's go over to name and topic, where I think Doug is going to kick things off, looking at the testnet pulse check.
All right, thanks, Rich. This could be a quick one. The Protocol Security SPE, led by SideStream, one of their charters was to take on the sort of the challenge around the fact that we don't have a working testnet within LivePeer. And I know they've interviewed a bunch of stakeholders across our ecosystem about their potential needs for the testnet. So they've gotten a lot of feedback. They'd asked me just to give a sort of post-check reaction before they move forward with their proposal. And as I read through what they're planning to propose, it looks really, really heavyweight. Like there's a big squeeze in order to maybe get a little juice here in terms of actually having a live test net. And I did want to just spend 1 or 2 minutes to see if anyone has strong reactions around, is there anything that's really painful where people feel really blocked by something they're trying to accomplish by the lack of a fully functioning live peer test net, that they just want to surface as like an obvious case for we absolutely need X, Y, and Z, and we're really painfully missing it? Because when I sort of read through all that goes into supporting a potential test net, there's a lot, right? You have to be able to deploy a copy of the recently updated contracts, deploy a faucet, deploy a fake explorer, a fake subgraph, a fake orchestrator node, round initializers, all of these things just to maybe temporarily simulate a test environment. And again, just want to pulse check with people what killer use cases they're missing out on by the lack of a test net. I'm sure they passed some of this feedback to SideStream as well. But if you have anything obvious you want to shout out, I'll listen. Otherwise, drop something in a chat, and I can just take that into account when I give feedback in case we might be able to make some iterative progress towards something a little later.
So Doug, I can give my opinion on this. Um,
Great.
so some people may know here that I started my career as smart contract developer. The most of the functionality of the testnet is not necessarily needed, and people can give their opinions about what functionality they think is done by the testnet that is not done with blockchain tools that are able to emulate the blockchain state. You can get your own RPC, you can host it privately, you can fork blockchain state. So I'm not necessarily seeing the need for a testnet.
Yeah. Thanks for the input. That's certainly the starting point, is that a lot of the state can be forked and simulated. And then there's a potential architecture where there's basically different containers that are available and even third party contributed for the optional additional sets of functionality. Like if you're developing the Explorer, if you need a subgraph, these sorts of things. So um, yeah, agree. I think that lean starting state can accomplish most things for most people. And it's just a question of how far we go to support everything.
You're talking about subgraph functionality. Can you give maybe an example of how this would look if you have a testnet, a public testnet, versus how it would look if someone was want to do that in a private blockchain with blockchain tools, and why maybe you need the public testnet maintained by the dedicated team.
It's a good question. One example was, let's call it testing or preparing for upcoming protocol upgrades. Like there was going to be an upgrade that changed functionality, and actors in our ecosystem, be it delegators or governance participants or orchestrators, wanted to test their setups in preparation for an upcoming upgrade, then doing it against a publicly available um, sort of testnet that was deployed and maintained by someone else might be a convenience feature. But I think you bring up a good point, whether that could be accomplished in like a locally simulated environment as well. And by the way, I think when this proposal goes live, there'll be all the opportunity for public feedback on it, of course, before implementation. And so those would be good questions to ask.
I'd just like to add that I've always felt like the lack of a test net affected builders coming to live peer, that entry point of I want to try it before I buy it kind of experience, which is common with some other networks with their test net kind of serves that purpose. But I do think that we have a lot of options currently as a network with price per broadcaster, payment clearinghouse, remote signers, something like a shared community hot wallet gateway. We've always used like a community gateway in different capacities. So I think that's kind of our current fix for that in a sense. And definitely acknowledge there'd be some benefit in having like other smart contract changes staged in a different network. But that said, like I don't know that it's like super priority unless it's blocking any other. Like say, I do think that for payment clearinghouses and such, we might want to look at smart contract changes, and having a test net could help there.
Can I make
Well,
one comment? Sorry, Doug.
yep, go ahead.
If you need the testnet, we can deploy it in our private server here for free, and you can SSH in and emulate it. We can give you the infrastructure for that. It's not such a difficult design as it used, and it doesn't take as much effort as it used to take 2 years ago. If it was 2 years ago, maybe the price and the blockchain premium could have been more digestible. I don't think with the current AI tooling today and the know-how of the network, like we necessarily need a dedicated team for that.
Great. Thanks for offering. It'll be good to follow up on when people bring up the use cases they're looking for. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for the quick pulse check. We don't have to spend forever on this. And yeah, I see Mike had a useful comment down in the comments as well. So yep, appreciate it. We can probably move on to the next topic.
Doug, just a quick final one in regards to a timeline for decision or a timeline for next steps. Do you know when they're moving forward?
I would imagine the protocol would be publicized, or sorry, the proposal would be publicized sometime in the next couple of weeks. So I'm just going to share some initial feedback their way before opening it up broadly, so it could be more effective proposal, and people will get to land from there.
Great.
And by the way, this is not a funding proposal, right? Like the protocol SP is already funded, working on updates every week, fixing bugs, etc. This is just another task that was already approved in the previous round of funding, I believe.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Great. Next up, let's come to John, who I think is going to do a NAT dashboard demo.
Yep. Go ahead and share my screen. Hey everyone, can you see my screen now? Awesome.
Yeah.
So this is the latest work that we've been doing on the NAP developer dashboard. The goal of this is to provide a pane of glass view of the whole network and what capabilities and models are available in the network, as well as the success rate and a view of like the amount of volume and usage. This is just at the moment still a high level view because we're working with aggregate data sources and drilling into those to get more fact-based data over time. So currently you can actually query different time ranges like 1 day or 7 days or 14 days. I've been working with Mike to improve some of the caching on here. There's been changes needed on queries and things like that. Let's take a few seconds to come back. I think most of this is the pipeline unit costs that I just started drafting, which is kind of the next phase to complete this week. We have added caching to like all of these other metrics here. So this actually was loading a lot faster about 30 minutes ago. But just for reference, so it does do some caching there. You can see it comes back. We have a view of what's available in the network, and this will be made more into like developer API. Is the goal to make it more searchable and to work with tools like the SDK. Um, and it also goes, this is just historical data over time. When we think about an SDK using the network, they're working with like a remote signer to discover orchestrators, but this does show us, from actual demand through the network, what's been used, what price was paid for it, how, which GPUs were offering the model, and that kind of thing. I have a deeper dive. I've tried to expand out these tables so you can get better validation behind the data. But it's still a little work in progress. But I do plan to have this wrapped up this week. I'd love to hear any feedback on this. I'd love to see at the end of the day, I'd like to have a RESTful API that developers can use to get some of this more useful data, like what the actual capacity is for a certain model, given a price or something like that. But again, it's different. It's a different interface from like actually streaming versus looking at historical data. As far as what the use cases are. So this is what we have. A lot of this is just what you see in the Explorer, the round and fees, the subgraph, and then these are all from the Mike's leaderboard metrics API. And I've also been working with Chung. This pipeline unit cost is coming from data. I've worked with Chung to pull directly the data from Daydream's ClickHouse data source into NAP, which gives us a little bit more direct route for certain types of information. But definitely still working with a Cloud SB on that.
Awesome. Any questions for John?
This looks awesome. When do you think we'll see a hosted accessible version backed by real data, even if it's not, every data source fully hooked up yet?
Yeah, I would expect to look for that on Friday towards the end of the week. And this is real data that we're looking at here, but of course, I think some of the usage numbers coming out of scope that's being worked on are still, we still need to populate those. But we'll be working on the metrics a lot this week to get this over the line.
Awesome. Love this as a starting point.
Thank you.
Maybe a question: Is there a plan to make it prompt based, where you can query with natural language?
Yeah, Chung actually built an interface like that using like an OpenAI plugin, but I'm not really sure where he got the data from. I'm going to talk to him about how he plugged that in. Of course, you could use an MCP server with ClickHouse too. So that's kind of a way of interacting with it too.
Awesome. Any other questions for John and Chang? So John, as a next step, it's planning on being live by end of week. So next week we could all have a little play directly.
Yeah. And shout out to Mike. He's been really helpful today on the caching. I was trying to go in and like rewrite views and stuff, and it just turned out a lot of it was just HTTP caching. But we may still need to build some views to power, more developer-centric APIs.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, John. Let's move to Define, who I think is on V5 of the proposal, and some updates and demos. If you're speaking, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute, mate. But we can see your screen.
Yes, sorry. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's we can see it. Perfect.
Great. So we have updates in two fronts. The first is the embodied avatars, and the other is Weave. So on the embodied avatars, we went through the skill.md flow, and we found out that the consumer gets the latency, and they have to have fast internet speeds, else the avatar doesn't respond as it should, and the quality is not adequate. So we did a re-implementation, and we went through um, and different changes and got the ability to deploy the avatar inside the meeting. So right now you're looking at a Zoom meeting, and the avatar is also in the Zoom meeting. Is not conversational yet. This is what I'm working on right now. But as you notice, the latency is practically zero. And a very big win is also that you don't need accounts to enter into Zoom meetings. So we're validating this in the market this week, and this is the updates regarding Embody. When we finish with the conversational layer, we will let you know with a demo, and we're actually very glad to use it ourselves before we offer it to other people. So we scale a bit back the skill.md distribution, and we're using this to validate the market. It's useful for us, and we believe it will become useful to other people. And this is regarding the embody avatar updates. I'm going to show you now the orchestration agentic updates. Uh, so we have worked this week on our own orchestration system. And lately, if any of you guys are on X or you're watching the agentic engineering news, you may have seen that the market switched from human to agent interaction to human to multi-agentic interactions through an orchestration layer, which basically allow you to control multiple agents and accomplish more stuff. So I work primarily with dispatching linear tickets, and the agent does all the work. It communicates with a centralized agent to get all the context, to make sure there are no conflicts. It dispatches a PR, and then I just have to review the PR. Second. And this is pretty much this is an old PR. This shows all the open PRs. This one that was actually created from the agent. So this includes different lanes, engineering, QA, DevOps, remote operations, and we also have this tab, which I have redacted because it includes some sensitive data about the orchestrators that we obviously don't want to show. So this is pretty much how the panel of a workload operator will look, and this is what I would like to have when I entered the live peer system. Of course, a lot of this will be further abstracted to be able to go from prompt to execution to distribution, but it already allows us to accomplish a lot more work much sooner. And on the orchestration updates, we put out this dashboard, which is public, and you can check the orchestrators that are in the pipeline, their state, how much balance it's owed to them. The latest payouts went through today, so everyone is made whole again. And yeah, so these were the updates. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We are still looking towards product market fit. We're finally proud of our product. The previous movements we did with the consumer embodied agent, the latency, all of that, like it felt like it wasn't exactly in the right path. This actually is something that we want to use. I would like to interact with my agent. In this way, I would like to have 10 agents autonomously in 10 different meetings, taking notes, engaging people, advertising our business, etc. Oh, the agent just replied. Uh, so partially working too. And we will put our proposal out today. If you guys want to support it, please go and support the proposal. Or if you have other ideas, you can also vote. Otherwise, in any case, we'll be glad to continue working with orchestrators and the library ecosystem.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Define. I know culmination of many months of hard work. Any questions for either the avatars or the orchestration layer?
I want to make a comment regarding how this can consolidate with the work that John did, because John did network-wide observation and understanding, while we went into workload operation, workload operators data, and I think this is both are really valuable and they can complement each other pretty nicely.
Yeah, there's a lot of angles to look at there. Are you thinking mostly from a perspective of network usage and getting observability of embody agent workloads?
For first of all, for every future workload creator, and for the embodied avatar as well. So for every person who wants to work with Unreal Engine tech, which we will provide, and for people who want to build their workloads that are based on Daydream, Dask Scope, or any other custom workloads, I think we're building the layer where you can interact with your workload, you can interact with your orchestrator fleet, because you enter the network, you using an app, you can see what is available in the network, what is the failure rate, what is the success rate. But if you are a workload operator, you have different needs. You don't necessarily want to show the whole internet, what version your orchestrators are running, how exactly all this private information, proprietary information. So this is very valuable for you
Yeah.
as a workload
Yeah.
operator.
I had given some thought into this, and I'll just do a bit of brain dump on my thoughts here because I gave it a lot of architecture design thought, and I think there's other parties need to like come to a consensus on what we're going to do. But I look at this as a role of the payment clearinghouse, ideally. Currently, the idea is that we would put metrics collection in the SDK, as I understand it. But when you're paying for jobs and work that's being done, the remote signer is going to get a request for all the work that's done. And if you have a proper authentication system, then you know which user is requesting work as well as which application, and like an OAuth identity model, like I described last week. And this is really powerful because it's just a JSON web token that it's even short-lived. So you have this refresh token process that keeps it safe. So like AI doesn't steal a token and go use accounts. And so this allows you to track everything that's going on at the signing level. And there's just enough data from the remote signer to know like what manifest ID it was, and enough to construct a subscription maybe to the events URL from the orchestrator. And that could all be collected at a remote signer level, transparently without the SDK or client app. You can push all these events up. There is limited information on what you can collect. There's some things that you definitely want to collect at the SDK that you can't see at the remote signer. But I think this would be something valid to consider implementing. So I chatted with Josh a little bit about that piece, but I think the OIDC login flows and that authentication architecture is really important, because if you have that, you could capture these events, a lot of this network usage at the remote signer / payment clearinghouse level, and abstract it from the application builder. and you can have like an opt-out header, right? If you start a job and you don't want it collected, you could maybe opt out of data collection or configure that at a client ID app level. So that's my thinking on it, but I might be kind of in the clouds with that, and hopefully I didn't moonshot that.
I think it's really a valid architectural thinking. We have made it part of our roadmap to to change all our existing parts, custom-made parts, to be remote signer, to be gateways, to be bring your own container. The thinking we're doing regarding this and some second thoughts are how we're able to do this and also allow the consumer to not and the future workload operators to experience zero engineering pain for doing so. And a question I have is, you're able to collect all of this information from the remote signer, but does this mean that all of this information is public? Everything that is being generated from the remote signer?
That when you're talking about like parameter updates and so on, if you were to put a collection like that, and it would, but currently it does not, right? So the remote signer does not get the parameters of your requests, I believe, beyond maybe model, but isn't in like the params. Um, I don't think it takes model, but no. So the idea was that remote signer could subscribe to an orchestrator's events URL and monitor the health of the stream, and report on that and collect that. It would be easier for it to do that than for the SDK to do it and send it up. But it's more of an architectural discussion. I would talk with Josh about what his current path is with it, so I think he's got that working with scope already. But yeah, I think that the OAuth 2.0, login model authentication, like having a single authentication server around the payment clearinghouse, gives you that ability to kind of roll your own login system. Sorry, provide a login system that everyone can use so they don't have to build their own authentication, because you already have this requirement to authenticate to the LivePeer network in some way. I usually that's an ETH account with a deposit reserve. In the remote signer case, that's somewhere else, and so the SDK needs authentication. There's no auth built into the remote signer today, but when you put something around it, which we have with either Daydream or the payment house example I made, that provides like the OAuth authentication, or at least an OIDC device authorization flow that you're familiar with when, like, if you link Cursor to another tool or log in with Claude or something like that, you get a browser login and a session token. And that's exactly, I think, how the SDK should work. It's just, there's a lot of products out there that provide turnkey integration for that with wallets, which is nice. But I think we have that requirement at the network level to deal with all the accounting around a payment clearinghouse. And that would really help everyone kind of maybe you could have multiple applications, multiple builders, multiple platforms on one remote signer as a service for the network. And that would kind of solve what you're talking about for other builders, I think.
John, maybe just quickly, because I know that this is something that you've been really pushing forward and feel very, very passionately about, for the network as a whole. I know we were talking about potentially having a session on this later this week where, 4 or 5 folks from the community can give feedback directly on and sort of expand out the problem space from what you and Josh are working on. Would that be helpful to have a session collectively where I know you've already gotten a lot of feedback from Rick and you've got individual feedback, but to have a collective session, would it be useful?
Yeah, I think that would be great. It'd be a good format to kind of share the idea and get into the details some more. We have like a roadmap suggestion doc that I've filled out.
Yeah.
Would like to get it on the roadmap and get feedback, but I hear a lot of people want to know how to deploy a remote signer, and there's all these detailed gotchas with like having to have a SSL certificate around it and so forth. And I really thought through this login flow, and I think this is industry standard that would help us a lot. So yeah, let's table it and we can come back to that later in the week.
I'm happy to try and get a group together to discuss it. And I think Define, obviously, if you can challenge architecturally as well, that's really valuable. But yeah, I think it would be worth capturing this in a much broader, longer conversation. I don't know what you think about that, John.
Yeah, let's do that. Thanks, Rich, for leading that. And that last discussion with Comfy Stream was a really good one, and I like that format. So we should do that and just invite the community and get as many people as we can.
Define, I cut you off. You were just about to respond. Do you want to just wrap up on your side, mate?
Yes, I'm putting my question on the chat now. It's more about, okay, this OAuth is really good if you're looking to deploy applications that using live peer workloads. But what about if you're going B2B and you just have one or two really big clients that you want to distribute your workloads basically? Would that maybe, is this case being covered from your existing architectural thinking? And if this is the case, does this case use OAuth too? Or why does it need OAuth? But we can expand on this like in a private conversation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to briefly answer your question, yes, it can. You can look at some other products out there like Ping Identity or Turnkey.com. Apparently, it's got a pretty nice integration with Web3 stuff, and their model is very similar. Build your own app, have your own URL, and the OAuth login flows. The authentication server has an issuer, a login URL, redirect URL, logout URL. And so you can customize the application depending on what type of app it is, right? If you don't necessarily have to have your own website, but if you do, you can make it in such a way where it's transparent and it's just a service provider to your application. But the remote signer and your app essentially can trust the identity of who's using the remote signer.
The question was more about what if you feeding your client calls, what if it's API based and they just interact with you through an API, not necessarily on the app layer.
Yeah, it's really the same as OIDC at that point on the back end. It's very similar to any other link if you add GitHub login to your site. Now we can go into it more. If it's a private client. That's what it is. You have public clients, private. But yeah, I'll save the discussion for later. I know Rich probably wants to move on.
Yeah.
I've just created a suggestion channel, so feel free to hop in there if you are interested, and we can try and arrange a time for later this week. And John, you can lead it. I'll help facilitate it, and we can hopefully have something for next Monday.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, John. Thanks, Define. Conscious of time, so let's keep moving. I think next up, Steph. Do you want to give a quick update on the narrative building workshop?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So if you remember last week, Adam shared a new version of the website that we were excited to bring live, and that went up as a part of the new suggestion to roadmap pipeline. I think, as Rich mentioned earlier, that pipeline still needs a bit more. Hey guys, still needs a bit more fidelity, and in order to continue moving the website work forward so that we can have that really feel good, credible, public facing surface area. We didn't want the community feedback session to be a blocker to that. And on top of that, I think actually maybe to kind of like turn it on its head and like, oh, there's probably a lot that that myself and other members of the sort of emerging narrative production team can bring to the builders. And so rather than maybe standing up and saying, hey, what do you want out of a website, or do you have feedback on this? Maybe instead we can provide like a mastermind or some sort of narrative building workshop to give you guys the tools to look at your projects differently and have some more peer participatory marketing and GDM intelligence in the room. So that's what I proposed to Rich. It's kind of what I'm proposing here as well. I think it could be really fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I think definitely worth pivoting a little bit with the workshop. What I'll do is I will post in the chat a little link which everyone can join the discussion and keep an eye on, and then we'll try and arrange a session for later this week. Any questions to Steph, Adam? I know it's a little update, but on either narrative side or the website side. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I know there's some great work from both Steph and Adam going into it. So yeah, excited over the next week to see how it develops. Next up, I think we have Ben, who's going to give a quick update on his session that he's running later this week. Are you with us? Let's get you on stage. Invite me up. That's weird. It's not letting me invite you up. Very strange. While I sort that, Ben, I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Sorry, mate. Let's come to Peter, who has a quick update on funding SPEs. Great. Peter, can you hear us? Are you with us? Peter, you're on mute. Just wanna.
Oh, apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Great.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of here today bringing up the topic of something that's gone around in foundation discussions, etc. And as many of you may not know, that the AI SPE has been defunct for the past 6 months or so. And part of that has been this encouragement towards smaller grants as opposed to larger SPE grants. And the AI SPE was, well, to toot our own horn, kind of fundamental behind pushing and building the Daydream application. We started 2 years ago, or well, a year and a half ago, and basically built Comfy Stream. John here on the call has been a real foundational contributor, and we think that there's an opportunity here to use the Comfy Stream backend to build a potentially multi pipeline opportunity for orchestrators to host jobs for, say, agents, say like text to speech, text to image, text to video, and I don't know. I just wanted to kind of throw out there this kind of this concept of funding another SPE as opposed to even a short-term roadmap project to get what now we're identifying as Muction Labs, because we've kind of separated from Live Peer Org to be independent, and just try to gauge interest there and throw that out to the community as where we see funding of SPEs, as a foundation is not so keen on larger SPE funding, or at least that's what they've been indicating. But I just wanted to kind of throw out there to community how we all feel about that. Like, uh, yeah, AI SPEs worked for 2 years and built huge projects on Live Peer and pushed forward not only batch jobs but live video like Daydream. And I'm wondering what people think about the future of funding projects like that, teams, because we have an incredible amount of talent between Brad and John and Jason and Prakash. Uh, and it seems kind of a shame to throw it all away.
Well, I'll try to chime in there a bit. Yeah, I definitely think it's a good idea with the Comfy Stream multi-GPU, multi-pipeline support, which I think it's mostly multi-pipeline is what we're talking about here. There's a lot of, I just want to go ahead and put all some of the value around that, just kind of some color to it, but also want to address that, it sounds like, yeah, there are funding concerns and the way we get work done. I think working with Foundation has been great for me personally over the past, 3 months. But there's always room for us to improve, right? Every time you've got a retro, you should have a retro probably, or we could as a community even through this roadmap process as we iterate. And I think at the moment we're kind of still transitioning to the roadmap in a way, but I love that the item is now there and we can get some discussion around it, kind of like the payment house idea. And it may turn out that some of these projects or initiatives and things that we need to do, which in this case, as you said, like this is just leftover work that we kind of just ran out of runway, right? We had a bigger vision to get this onto the network, and we really got held up at the end getting it onto the network part. We had a lot of it actually done, and we needed to see it was real traffic through it. But there's a significant value to Comfy Stream that you were hitting at. The network today is limited in the number of GPUs that are available, and in order to serve multiple pipelines or models, you have the benefit of be able to have multiple models and then like hot and cold load them instead of just having a worker support a single model. I mean, today, if you look at Stream Diffusion, it supports switching dynamic purity control nets, and it may appear that it's switching, but it actually stops the stream and restarts when you change like between, let's say, SD Turbo and SDXL. Those are considered different models, right? The TRT is like an advantage that gives you a little bit more without actually restarting the whole thing. Comfy Stream is unique in that you can actually switch the model or the modality and not even stop the stream, and it will just continue going. It's just kind of like places a reload and so on. A lot of that's around the pipeline. There's a lot of advantages to putting Comfy on the network. I think this would be like a great project. But yeah, sorry, it was a little too apprehensive, but I think that's my thoughts on that. And there's a lot of advantages to having it, but it's different. I think it can go on the same rails as Scope probably to get some advantage, and that's where this roadmap stuff probably fits together. But of course, I'm not might be a bit of a SME, but I shouldn't necessarily be the only opinion on this matter. So I think it's just a matter of how we plan out our work and make things effective. If we show results, we should have no problem getting funding, I would hope, because we're really close to turning, I think, demand for our GPUs into actual, real customer usage. So that's all I've got.
Awesome. I wanted to follow up with some clarifications, and I think Ben might tee Ben up for that as well. But maybe we just come to Mike's questions first, because that was initial. So why did Ink Daydream drop it? I.e. Comfy Stream. They had a grand vision to infiltrate the Comfy community. What happened to that? they held many working sessions. What was the outcome? I'm conscious that I'm not sure anyone from Inc. is actually on the call. So I am aware that this might be speculation. But Peter, do you want to give a direct response as being responsible for ComfyStream?
Yeah, I think that it would just be speculation on my point as well, because I don't really completely understand, other than ownership, that moving from a ComfyStream based kind of pipeline runner back to AI runner was, I don't know, it was some executive decision.
Yeah, as far as I remember, there was actually a locking issue in the AI runner pipeline, and there was actually problems on both sides that got
Oh,
fixed at some point.
that's a really good point you bring up there, John. That we did have issues with like startup time and restarting pipelines that you've completely solved in
Yeah,
ComfyStream now.
yes, it's been completely
But that
fixed.
was an issue initially in Daydream.
Yeah, yeah, and some of it turned out to be an AI runner. I mean, I remember working with Victor on it for months, off and on. The issue kept coming up even after they weren't using Comfy. They were having it with the AI runner for a bit, and came back and had to make more changes. But yeah, the main issue is that essentially ComfyStream at its core would run a prompt. So if you tell it to run a prompt, it's a batch image-to-image processor, so it had a loop in it that would run that prompt. And if anything broke or the stream ends, ad runner does that. But there's no communication channel to get it to stop running the prompt. So it kept the
Yeah.
process running all the time. And you get these zombie workers. So that
Yeah,
is
we had some issues with ComfyStream running as the backend for Daydream initially, but John has spent the last 6 months fixing basically all of these issues with ComfyStream, and now it is a very robust backend that I think that, and that's kind of where I've been going towards with my new proposal, is just to create an example app to show how awesome ComfyStream is, and maybe even two apps, web front ends that can showcase the capabilities and the ability for ComfyStream to host multiple pipelines on a single orchestrator, as opposed to a single backend or a single pipeline like most orchestrators have been hosting. So that's the context of my proposal.
And one thing to add there too is, Comfy has a lot of core nodes built in that are not even AI, right? So if you build pipelines around that, which they could be different workflows, or anything, we can extend the capabilities of the LivePeer network significantly as like an image video editing tool, and this helps facilitate our dynamic capabilities roadmap that gets us to 0-day model deployment, which was the ultimate goal. Was to be able to keep up with the market. There's new models coming out every week, and we've learned from that over time is you need it to run fast, you need modality support for whatever that model is, and then you need to be able to get that model out to the orchestrators like same day. And that they've been through that process a lot, and this is the way to make that work for batch. It also will help facilitate, these batch AI agent pipelines. Like think about if you paste into Cursor or Copilot to analyze an image, you just are asking anything, just giving it context, like that could be a LivePeer pipeline that just returns text back for an image. There's probably huge demand for that. And Rick has done some work on Open Router to try to get us listed there. And this also clicks really well with the payment clearinghouse OAuth login that I was referring to earlier. It just makes it log in with your account, link your desktop application kind of flow. So MCP server access, that kind of stuff, the network is top of mind here. And I think it could, these efforts and with ComfyStream supporting so much would be really easy to help prototype and validate at scale.
I Yeah,
I agree as well, and I think that it's surprising to me that the foundation is not encouraging, uh, and no disrespect, just saying that I've been given feedback personally, uh, that a team like the AI SPE is not going to be funded by the community or not going to be encouraged by the community. Whereas I actually think that, with the work that John's been doing, and as Define points out, that we could host Comfy Stream workloads and work towards that effect. I think that is something that the community would be behind funding. So again, just kind of throwing that out there, that I think we should bring the AISP back, and under the guise of Muction Labs, which is only because we did not want to have a dependency, a financial dependency on LivePeer Inc., and that we can have multiple groups of people developing independent applications and solutions on the LivePeer platform. That Okay, let me back up for a second. I just want to say that I believe that Studio was an example of how anyone, permissionless, could build a platform on top of the LivePeer network. And so Muction Labs was and is in that form to enable other people to build their own studio or daydream or whatever it is. So I'm putting forth the idea here beyond just the comfy meme little app idea that I have, that the AISPs slash now Muction Labs should continue to exist, and will propose to get funding from the community in order to enable other builders to build things like Studio, like Daydream, like Comfy Meme. And that's my premise.
Thanks, Peter. Um, can I ask you a question? How was the facilitated session on Thursday? Because there's been a couple of accusations here against the foundation,
Oh,
but
no.
we
I
did
apologize.
facilitate a
I did not
session on
want to
Thursday.
sound accusational against Foundation, only in the form that it has been discouraging of larger form SPEs. The session we had on Thursday was fantastic, and I really appreciated the uh kind of let's call it formatted idea, where maybe you can elaborate, Rich, on how that was facilitated. I did appreciate that it was focused.
Yeah, I mean, we did run a session on Thursday, and I thought that we would be discussing the next iteration of the suggestion that you were put forward, so that we can try and move forward. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say on that front. I thought you were coming today to discuss that. Um, I'm going to let Ben address some of the SPs, and on-chain treasury allocation, because that's actually the next topic that we wanted to
Perfect.
dive in on. But before we do, obviously, you know, the support for cloud, the support for the embodied SPE. Like, obviously, we definitely want to see more SPEs at peer, and we do want different funding mechanisms. But maybe if there are no further questions for Peter, we can come to Ben and talk through the next suggestion.
Yeah, let's do that. I think. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. So this was a suggestion as well, right? Going through the same process of trying to create, more clarity and alignment around how we move forward on things. I think the session that is planned for Wednesday at about this time, and that we would like as many people as possible to come to, was really about, or is really about, clarifying on a few things around how we utilize the on-chain treasury. I think, this suggestion, right, that the foundation is not supportive of SPEs, I don't think is true. I think the challenge today is, right, that there's one funding mechanism. It's an SPE, which tends to naturally create, I think, its own bloat. It needs to justify its own existence. So therefore it sort of expands. And it doesn't facilitate, a lot of other things that are needed to be successful, right? Which is, getting alignment on what's the most important thing, building consensus on, what's going to be built and delivered and how it's going to be accountable. And I think other mechanisms can sort of support that, which is why, there's been this effort to use community suggestions to create like a really clear path for things to move on to the roadmap, and the roadmap facilitating different types of contributions beyond just SPEs. But it's not our place to say that, right? So the session this week is to try and build a little bit of consensus around what some of the norms are around that. What do people want to see before a proposal is put up? What are the things that we want people to be proposing? Is it things on a roadmap that are already pre-agreed, or is it the ability for anyone to come in and propose anything based on their own whims? These are the types of things I think around the front of the governance pipeline that we want to work on. A second is to build more clarity around the RFPs. I think it's great that we've got such a dedicated community here, and frankly, we want everybody to be contributing to our path forward. But still, we need to attract in new talent, right? I used the example of EC Wireless. We put up an Explorer proposal. We brought in great contributors. They've nailed that. We all forget about the challenges that existed with it before. And we've got people that are turning up every week to join these calls and contribute to it. So we want more people like that. And I think the RFP mechanism is a great one to enable that. But how does that work if the foundation's not operating it? Or how does that work if there's not pre-funding committed to those types of activities? And then the last one is, around the accountability. There's sort of no norms today. Every time someone creates a proposal, there's usually people saying, how's it going to be accountable, or what are the milestones? Define made a great suggestion around having the foundation sort of being involved in maybe managing the multi-sig, and therefore having some control for the ecosystem around payouts. I think that's really important. That's just my opinion, though. But if we're going to have very large proposals, having some control that things are being delivered on a month-to-month basis, I think is really important. So anyway, this is all to say that the session on Wednesday at about this time is just a place to get a broad-based discussion around, what do people want to see as potentially proposals? How can these different mechanisms work to give lots of different opportunities to contributors? And then what is it we're thinking about, post-funding milestones, ensuring accountability, that sort of stuff. So we just encourage everyone to come along for that session. Will be 60 to 90 minutes. Great chance to get all of these ideas out. And then it would be my intention from there that we come back the following week, share what came out of that session, and potentially put it into the forum so that people see that, hey, if you understand what people are looking for and sort of follow our norms, there's always an opportunity for you to put forward a proposal, whether it's SPE or something else, to keep the contributions going. Happy to take any
Totally.
questions on that though, but I do think this is an important topic. Yeah.
Yeah, totally hear you there, Ben. I just want to throw it out there that I think that there is an incredible value at retaining core engineers and orchestrators that have been contributing to the network over multiple years, and to lose those engineers like Brad, Jason, Prakash, that have operational experience is it's a real risk, I think, to to kind of discourage funding for larger groups of SPEs, as the foundation has been trying to seeming to encourage of smaller groups, smaller projects, smaller grants and whatnot. And I'm curious to hear your perspective on that, as opposed to funding larger groups that are teams that work together, that have been that have
Sure.
intimate knowledge of orchestration, go live peer, and yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just
sure. So
curious about
yeah,
that.
let me share a couple of things, right? And I'll just share personal perspective again. I think like anybody can utilize our governance mechanism to create the team and structure for the amount of funding that they want, right? What I'm focused on is trying to think about how we put in place the norms and create some more clarity, right, around what works best for the ecosystem. And my concerns with some of the other SPEs, historically, has been that um, I I don't know if they created the right conditions to execute. Okay, I think they often went for a very long time. Yeah, so 4 or 5 months. So people had no burning platform to sort of deliver stuff. I think some of the historical ones
Well, I
were
mean,
sort of
if you
like
can't retain an engineer for 4 or 5 months, they're gonna leave. We're all gonna leave. So, I mean, I'm gonna leave if funding is not possible like this. And I think
yeah,
Brad and Jason and Prakash have also are in the same boat, and that it's just untenable.
yes, I think maybe if we come to my point, which is that actually there's then no um, midterm deliverables, right? That there's not a monthly commitment made to ship certain things creates a lot of pressure because the security that I know you guys are talking about and asking for there um, leads to a very large request of the funding. And it's only at the historical end of that funding cycle that there's really the ability for people to see if they're getting a return on that investment. Yep. And I'm please not just talking about the
So, what
AISPE
was
here,
Daydream
because
not a good investment like that the AISP delivered on that led to scope?
uh, I guess I'm not sure what you're talking about because that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. What I'm talking about is the mechanism, Peter, because that's what you asked for, right? Um, so what I'm saying is that funding teams for 4 or 5 months and not having any interim ability to assess the return on investment creates a risk for the on-chain treasury, right? Because it's all the funding up front, yep, and only at the end that you can see. So the session on Wednesday is to actually talk about how to deal with those sorts of contradictions that exist between what is needed for contributors, right? But also what's needed for the ecosystem. And I think that's what we're talking about here is the mechanism. We're not talking about the AISPE. That's not what I got up to talk about. I got up to talk about what are the mechanisms that need to be in place for the ecosystem to achieve its goals.
Fair enough. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, but I think this is the thing. To me, there's no reason that there can't be an AISPE or any type of SPE. But the more important questions, right, is like, what is it aiming to deliver? Yeah. What are the things that it's going to commit to as milestones? How do we map the funding to those milestones? How do we ensure that there's a return on investment that everyone can
That's
see?
the traditional
That's the type of
proposal
questions
process that we've operated on for the last 2 years.
Well, I'm just saying that, yeah, I don't think that actually is the same as how things operate now. I think we're in like a different.
I definitely see that things have changed.
I think maybe just to add a comment to that on things changing, I think there's also been a lot of sentiment within the community over the last couple of years that there needed change, especially around the number of projects that were seen as either scams in inverted commas, verbatim used by community members, or that just don't have high enough accountability for what is being shipped. So the foundation, and I'll speak for Ben because I know he's done a huge amount of work on it and will continue to do, is trying to respond to that community sentiment and to provide alternatives. So, without going into too much detail, I spent, and a number of other people spent a lot of time with AISP over November, December to try and get that transition to a new SBE proposal. I think Peter, you can put hand on heart and say that we spent a lot of time to try and get that next step there. We spent time with Cloud SB, we spent time with Define and looking forward to the body proposal. Obviously, SPEs are a mechanism which can produce fantastic results. Otherwise, we wouldn't be thinking otherwise. I go back to the early days of the AISP, which is when I supported Yondon and Brick and tried to get that in motion. And yeah, like you say, it produced some fantastic results over the course. I think the work that Mike and Speedy done have been doing with cloud is fantastic as well, consistently. Like you said, the AISP has done a huge amounts beyond. But we do need alternative mechanisms, and I think that's what the discussion is really about. And the question is what initiative suits what mechanism, and trying to match that in a way that is effective for the ecosystem, but that can provide funding for 3 to 6 months for key engineers when impact is delivered and when reputation is strong over the years. So I'm conscious that we could go around in circles. What I would say is I think Ben's discussion on Wednesday, which I will definitely be there and help facilitate, will be really an important session. I'm going to post something in the chat in a minute to how anyone can get involved from the community, and I think it's really, really important that we sort of open that problem space up before we try and have a specific solution. And I think as an ecosystem, that's just important that we explore problem space before jumping directly to a solution. I think that was a sort of long-winded. It went from a comfy stream proposal into a generalized topic. But any final questions for Ben? Like I said, the discussion will be taking place on Wednesday. So I'm going to presume no and move forward. Awesome. So the final thing that I wanted to just bring attention to is the wins of the week. We've been trying to do this to get some positivity at the end of these calls. Obviously, they can get into a lot of granular detail, but these are people delivering work across the ecosystem. So it's just a moment for anyone to put in the chat or to come up on stage and give a shout out to someone else within the ecosystem who's had a particular win or delivered value or just wanted to share some love. So I'm gonna start this week and give a big shout out to Define. I think Define, what you've been doing for this ecosystem over the last months has been awesome. The last 6 months, and super excited to see the proposal go live and hopefully to get it passed. Anyone else chime in with a win of the week from someone else?
Good, yeah. I think John does power of work, but I'm really interested in the payment clearinghouse. Not specifically because of it as a technical solution, right? But just because of the importance of like figuring out this payments layer for the ecosystem. I think one of the key things that I've seen change is really now crypto as payment rail for AI is critical, and therefore there's going to be lots of solutions. Payment clearinghouse might be the right one, or we may be able to pull things off the shelf from elsewhere. But one thing Latvia absolutely needs to do is understand how we accept payments into the network. And John, yeah, just leading on that and being so driven around understanding the detail, I think is huge credit to you and a huge help to the ecosystem. So that's a big win for the week, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. Yeah, I was even talking to Chris a little bit over the weekend about the architecture and just trying to just consult with all the blockchain SMEs, what we can do. But yeah, OAuth is just being used everywhere. I think it's going to be really key to our adoption phase.
John, I've already put your not competition, the payments clearinghouse suggestion in there as well. So hopefully we'll get some feedback.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool to see they get on the roadmap, because that way we can get more ideas, and if anyone else has a better idea on how we solve the problem, or if we use something off the shelf like turnkey, or how we go about it. Solving that core issue of the accounting is kind of the problem we're left solving at the moment. So yeah, we'll chat more about that later. Thanks.
And thanks, Mike, for the shout out. We are doing our best to and something that I'm going to be spending a lot of time on this week is and keep talking to people is how we get these problems surfaced and actioned far more effectively than we have been doing in the past. Everyone loves a Discord discussion or a discussion on Watercooler, but yeah, I'd love to see us being able to be more efficient at it, where we see a potential opportunity, and how quickly can we get that initiative resourced, with people, funding, as quickly as possible. So if you have ideas on that, I think it will be linked to Ben's discussion on Wednesday. So, any other wins of the week?
I gave in the previous week my appreciations to Dane, but I can't give them every week to Dane, so this week I would like to give them to Mehdad, who I have seen he's been working tirelessly around the ecosystem, and his work is being shown, and it is great to. Oh, I can, okay, but I don't think it's ethical to give the appreciations to the same person every week. I really think that Mehdad has been doing amazing work with organizing the ecosystem efforts along the board, and it's been fantastic to actually being able to see visually what people are been doing and how projects are progressing and have it all in one place and having someone who you can communicate about your issues if you need advice regarding your product, etc.
That is a very, very good shout out. My dad is the unsung hero behind the scenes, keeping everyone on track. Mr. Accountability. So yeah, huge shout out to my dad. Awesome. Great. I think that's it. If you have any more, chuck them in the chat. Otherwise, if you scroll up, I've posted links to all of the different forum channels. Sorry, forum posts within Discord that you can go away and have a look at. We will be running sessions this week with across different days. So if you want to get involved, simply click on the channel and it will take you through. And I'll give an update tomorrow and try and get some dates in the diary. Great. What was I going to say? I was going to say something else. Yeah. Last week we didn't stay on, but a quick show of hands. Does anyone want to stay on for Watercooler to keep going? Just because I do have to hop personally, but I'll let someone else facilitate if there's a critical mass of people. Anyone? Does anyone want to stay on for Watercooler Beyond? I'm going to give going once. Good to drop? Okay. I think everyone. Awesome. I think the call is to drop today. So I will bid you adieu and see you next week. Awesome.